Hi, this is ITS 224, Intro to Linux, and we're taking a look at Chapter 7 today, and it's about advanced shell programming. The first couple of slides here that we'll take a look at is just really talks about flowcharting symbols, and I don't think we need to go into it very much. Now, this is where the hands-on, more of the hands-on Linux stuff comes into play. So what we're doing here, remember it says using bash login and logout scripts. Now .bashrc is your login com file basically, and you can go ahead and remember where that is. Let's go to here. So let's go cat.bashrc and remember that the dot means it's a hidden file. So I can just go ahead and take a look and see what's in this particular login com file. You know, for the most part, a lot of comments and things, but here I'm setting up that prompt ps1 equals single quote $pwd, and then we have echo and some alias and things that we've done already. This sets up a function that we'll do later on. Now, what the rest of this talks about is this VI editor that we use. So setting up some of the defaults within this VI editor. So .vimrc is the configuration file for VI. Now the text says to use .exrc. That's not in OpenSUSE, but .vimrc is. So if we go out, and the other couple things. Notice this. There's a couple things you might want to do with this, like set number in this vimrc file. Or VI MRC file, and then when you load VI, it'll go ahead and add the line numbering, and that line numbering is pretty valuable when you're troubleshooting, debugging small scripts. Okay, some other kinds of things: set tab stop equals 3. You can put all these kinds of settings within this vimrc file, and it'll be it'll work for you just fine. You can set the shell within that VI MRC file as well. So let's look at that. So if we just vimrc, and that's what that file looks like. So I'm setting number. Okay, that turns these numbers on, and then set shell equals bin bash. So those are the only two configuration settings I have within this VI MRC file. I'll go ahead and exit here. Okay. Excuse me. Alright, the next piece of this particular first part is, and I should probably clarify Chapter 7 Part 1, there's a second part that'll be with this, is a test command. And this test command is used to analyze an expression to determine if it's true or false. Okay, so you can test to see whether there's a directory there in your home directory, for instance, or if there's an existence of a file with a -e. A -r determines if a file has read permissions, and so on. You know, -w determines if it has write permissions, -x if it has execute permissions, and so on. So let's take a look. Once again, here's another table that has some of these options within it, and these are, you know, file evaluation sort of options initially. We'll use -d to see if a file exists and is a directory, or a -e to see if the file exists. Now, the file evaluation using the test command, so what you're looking for and trying to get out of this is an exit status. So if there's a numeric 0 that's an exit status, then the test result is true. If it's a numeric 1, the test result is false. And how you determine, or how you see that output, is by typing echo $? To actually view the results of that. And you know, I'm going to go ahead and change that and bold that a little bit, because that's important to see. Okay, so echo $? So let's look at this. First of all, test for the existence of a directory using a -d. Let's read through this. If it exists, well, in this case, I'm seeing that my source directory does exist. And let me highlight that also. I'm seeing if this source directory, I know that this source directory exists. So I'm going to just make sure I see it before I actually test it, just to verify what my results are. Test-d source. So the syntax is test space your argument or your option. Dash D is saying, looking for a directory. And then source. That's the directory name. Echo $question mark will send this output to the screen. So a 0 would say it results in true, in the argument being true. If it doesn't exist, let's look at folder, test-d folder. And folder doesn't exist in my directory. So echo $question mark will result in a 1, which means false. So if we excuse me, if we look at this dir, and if we look up here a little bit, source is there. Now echo -d source, not echo -d, test -d source. Okay, I have no output. Echo $question mark, and that results in, the output results in a 0, which means it's true. Now, and also if you run a particular, or check for a particular condition, test a particular condition, that echo $question mark will show you the results of the last condition that you've tested for. So you have to run the condition and then echo it, and then that'll give you the result of that last test condition. So test-d for directory, folder, and folder f's examples f1 f2 folder doesn't exist, so we can verify that. Echo $question mark, and the result is a 1, which means false. Okay, the next is looking for a file. Now let's look at zoo. Okay, dir zoo1. We can see that it exists. Echo, now -e is the argument or option working with files, or looking at files. Zoo1. Same, I did it again. Test-e zoo1 echo $question mark. And because the result is a 0, that means it's true. Now we can do the very same thing with numbers. So what we'll do is set a number equal to something. Test $number equals a -eq equals 100, and then we can test if that condition is true, or we can test to see if it's we can change the number. Well, I should probably rephrase that. Number will still be set to 100, but we can see if it equals 101, and then that should come back false. Number equals 100. Okay, and then we'll test $number -eq for equals 100. Echo $question mark, and 0 says it's true. The 0 right here says it's true, and then we'll test to see if it's 101, and do the same thing. And so that says 1 says false. Okay, next will be, let's step back to GT is greater than, -LT is less than, -GE is greater than or equal to. So if we went and is greater than, we should be able to, and I haven't tested this, greater than 101. So if number is greater than 101, it should return the true, otherwise it should return false. So in this case, what we should see is a false. If it's what was it? LT is less than. Yeah. And that should show true. Right there. Okay. All right, we're to the point of performing string tests. So we can do the very same thing that we've done with the other tests with numbers, for instance, with strings as well. So in this case, we'll make Sean equal to LName. We'll make sure that looks right, and then we'll test that. Okay, and then we'll try to test some other test it to see if we can return a false as well. So let's go to there. Okay, so LName equals Sean, echo $LName, and we should see that it's listed as Sean, and then we'll test $LName equals Sean, echo. Okay, and so we see the result of 0. Now we should be able to test to see if another string doesn't match that. So if Sean spelt differently doesn't match LName, it should return us a false. So when we echo, we should see a false, and we do. Okay. Now, zero length strings. So this test to see if LName equals 0. Okay. So, and that's the -z. So we will say test -z $LName, and then we'll echo that out, and we see that that's a false. Let me look really quickly to see if we have any zero length files, and I don't right now. So we'll just go on beyond that. Okay, the next slide talks about these Boolean operators, and what we're doing in this case is testing, and the -r says is zoo2 readable. Okay, it has permission instead of read on it, and the -a means and is zoo2 writable. Okay, so in this case, if we look at zoo2, we can see that for the owner, it's read and write. Okay, so let's go ahead and test -r zoo2. Okay, we'll echo $, and the result is 0, so that's true. And then we'll do the same with -w to see if it's writable. And we also see that that's true, but now let's put the two together. -r zoo2 -a means and -w zoo2. So that condition should be true. Okay, as we see. Now the next piece is we're going to look at a file called v1, and it's just a file I have out there. This will apply to any file, and then we're going to test to see if v1 is writable, or if it has write permissions, and then we'll echo that out. So in this case, with this example, we can see that v1 doesn't have write permissions, but let's go and look throughout. dir. Okay, we're looking at v1. Okay, and that's set up to be read-only for the owner, users, and others. Okay, or the user, I should say, the user, others, or the users, groups, and others. Okay, so if we test to see if it has write permission, let's see, and the file was called v1. echo, and the condition is false. If it has write permission, it's true. Okay, so that concludes part one, and part one is primarily all about using this test program or function to be able to determine true or false conditions.